Welcome to the planning committee on Tuesday, the 24th of June. Kicking off with, do you have any apologies for absence? No, I've received no from the chair. Anyone have any declarations of interest?
On page 42 in the certificates of lawful development, 5/2025/0850 Hartwell Gardens is a garage, garage.
Oh, that's you.
Yes,
Oh, yes, that's your name now.
that's us. So but it's not something we're considering.
Yeah.
But I just mentioned it.
Fair enough. Yeah. Anyone else? No. And the minutes of the meeting for the planning committee held on the 3rd of June. Everyone happy with those minutes? Yeah. Yep. Ladies? Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yes, I did you. Dates, Dave. What's the 23rd? Anything in the chairman's report or urgent items? No, happy for its chair. And public questions? No, nothing to see. Any letters of objection? No, nothing to see, Chair. We're going to focus on applications registered week ending the 30th of May and the 6th and the 13th of June. Start page 11. Start with 5/2025/0734, which is 50 Westway, Hartland.
On 50 Westway, currently on the plot, the low ridgeline 3-bedroom bungalow with an attached single garage. Proposed was demolished and replaced with a pair of 3-bedroom semi-detached dwellings with single garages to the side. There's no accommodation proposed in the roof space. The ridgelines on the side projecting elements are subservient and much lower than the main roof ridgeline, which is 8.1 metres. Side ridgelines are between 6.7 and 6.9 metres due to the slope of the road. 52's ridgeline is approximately 6.7 metres and number 48 is approximately 9.5 metres high. Existing houses with ridgeline is approximately 5.5 metres high at the highest point. The footprint of the proposed proposal broadly sits on the existing property's footprint with very little deviation further forwards or rearwards. Side projections do extend virtually to the side boundaries to both sides. Directly opposite numbers 45 and 45A, 47 and 49 Westway are two pairs of semi-detached properties with similar design and scale to this proposal. Parking is 2 spaces in the property, including garages. Preliminary back roost assessment has been carried out and the property is categorised as having negligible potential to support the roost treating structure. Number 52 initially submitted an objection before the plans were available to view. This objection has since been withdrawn. Site is not conservation area, although it was not proposed. And putting the agenda, I consider no objection as our recommendation. Today I've done some research online to see if there are any objections on there. So apart from the 2 Westway there has actually been a couple of other objections posted on there from residents in nearby streets, which actually are both 15 and 17 Crossway. So there, if I could just show you on here, so they are concerned, so they are on streets with these gardens in the centre will be overlooked by the 2 proposed properties. So number 15 Crossway, which is the long garden that backs on to the back of the site boundary there, and they say the site backs onto our garden and we are concerned that the 2 new houses will directly look into our garden from the 2nd floor rooms at the back. Small size of their back gardens in relation to the size of the houses means that the houses are closer to the boundary of our garden, making it relevant more direct. I'd like to ask if a condition can be imposed on the planning which would remove permitted development for loft conversion, so that they need to seek planning permission before converting the loft in the future, adding a door, window in the roof. Planning officer wish to be the site of our garden for the applicant when they visit. And then at 17 Bosway, which is directly next door to them, basically pretty much very similar objections. But they also do mention that they feel that the proposed properties will be out of character with the street scene. They will dwarf the neighbourhood home 52 Westway, with the roof lines having an overbearing impact on 15 and 17 Crossway. Small corner of Crossway and Westway has already been the subject of considerable development, which has had a detrimental impact on the original 1930s properties. And then they also asked the same as 15 that should the proposal be accepted, that the conditions placed on the future development of the property, and also asking that the rear windows have glazing.
You think about those objections?
And interestingly, actually, there is also an objection online from Herts County Council Highways, that they think that the application should be refused because the proposed access parking arrangements were not in accordance with Hertfordshire County Council specifications and have the potential to interfere with the free and safe flow of highway users. So, okay, so my observations in relation to 15 and 17 objections, very difficult to know what 15 and 17 currently have at the end of their gardens. You know, they are extremely long. So in a normal situation, you'd be looking at the window to window ratio and potential availability of that. These are extremely long gardens. And it appears that both of them do seem to have some form of structure at the end. So whether or not that be summer house or offices or what is difficult to gauge. So there is a possibility that they could be loss of privacy or an overlooking. They don't sort of kind of state what there is. So there is, you know, there is that potential, but whether or not the officer at school will determine that as being strong enough factor. Highways is probably something that we can't ignore.
Yeah. The highways is the deal breaker, isn't it?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we just refuse.
It's one of those ones where they can easily come back with an amendment to
Yeah.
address the concerns
Mhm.
that are highlighted by highways. So they go into various kinds of various pieces of wording, but that's the sort of thing that can be easily overcome.
So is it a statement, something along the lines of, we don't object to them building semi-detached
Yeah.
houses, however, they need to address this issue.
Yeah.
Highways, yeah.
So, you know, we're used to seeing other applications that provide information about what they call they call it kind of like parking display, and it's the kind of I think they call it angle display, where when you're accessing or egressing from a driveway, you have certain visibility.
Yeah,
Visibility
yeah,
display, that's
yeah,
the word.
yeah.
Visibility display. So it's the sort of thing that can be easily voted on.
So what do we suggest that we change the wording to then, Heather?
So I think probably something along the lines of that the committee have no objection in principle to development of this plot. However, we know that objections have been raised by Hertfordshire Highways in relation to XYZ detail.
Yeah.
Therefore, on the basis of this, we would.
Anyone disagree with that?
Just to clarify on the
Yeah.
basis of X, Y, Z, so you understand.
Yes, so when I say XYZ, I mean, I can be very clear and say that, you know, we would recommend refusal on the basis that Hertfordshire Highways have detailed that the proposed
Yeah.
proposal is contrary to the proposed access to parking arrangement policies as guidelines in PPA.
Sorry,
Yes,
just
well,
clarifying.
it's fine,
I was
yes.
just clarifying that we were specifically talking about the highways point, not about the
We
name
are,
comment.
yeah,
Yeah,
we are.
okay.
Is everyone happy with that?
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on, we've got 5/2025/0840 does not meet the criteria. So we move on to 5/2025/0668, which is the land opposite 27 to 39 Common Lane, Batford.
Okay, and follow one. It's a long application. Yeah, the site which is directly to the side of Capital is a defined piece of land bordered on all sides by hedging, fencing, and sits opposite long-established properties on Common Lane. The site is not conservation area, but it is greenbelt. Precedent for development on the greenbelt in close proximity has been set by the conversion of 3 barns to residential directly adjacent to this plot of land. Construction of KWS directly to the rear. This proposal is for outline planning permission for the construction of 8 self-built straight custom built properties. Although samples of 4 designs have been provided within the application, each design has over such differences enough for either 3 Thanks. The preliminary ecological assessment has been conducted and showed no perceived adverse effects to wildlife on the site due to its poor ecological value. Monitoring of a disused badger set is advised before and during construction. If the application is being self-built, BNG plans are not relevant to the application. Then also put here, an extract from the planning statement states the site is situated within the greenbelt. The last time the greenbelt in this location was independently reviewed was in the early 1990s when the site was part of a larger field within an agricultural unit. Character of the surrounding area has dramatically changed since 2019. The site is now severed from the wider countryside, contained by built developments such as known as wider fences of including land within the greenbelt as set out in paragraph 1 of the MPP, as it does not check the unrestricted rule of the large built-up areas, prevent neighbouring towns from merging into one another, assisting and safeguarding countryside with encroachment, perceive the setting of special character, preserve the setting of special character of the historical town, and assist in the urban regeneration by encouraging recycling, demolition of other urban lands. The general presumption that very special circumstances is required to justify development, but otherwise can encourage development in the greenbelt. Perceive the ecology that it is has less than 4-year housing land supply, about 1.7 years land supply basically, which has since worsened. A severe housing land supply deficit. In addition, it has a severe deficit of sites available for straight custom build. These factors are in themselves at sufficient weight to justify very special circumstances. And then it says the National Planning Policy Framework, December 2024, paragraph 1.5, provides that development claims in greenbelt should also not be regarded as inappropriate development where the development use of grey belt land would not fundamentally undermine the purposes of the remaining greenbelt of the area of the plan. There is a demonstrable unmet need for the type of development proposed. Development would be in a sustainable location, with particular reference to powers 110 and 115 in the framework, where applicable, the development proposed meets the following goals. Grey belt is defined and includes any land that does not strongly contribute to any of the purposes A, B, or D, as well. Right there, satisfies all tests for development of green belt and so grey belt, right, and is therefore not inappropriate development of green belt. Based on the above information, this location appears to be suitable as a sustainable location for the addition of housing provided it remains the bold progressive style and protocol what is proposed in the application. One second still objection, policies SS1, H1 and H4. Not very great. Thank you.
No brainer to approve.
However, what I would like to just add to that is that whilst doing my sort of research today of objections and everything, yeah, Hertfordshire County Council have actually highways from the house, they have, yeah, companies. They have, yeah. So, and actually kind of in a sense, it's one of those things which I probably should have picked up at the time, is that they're recommending refusal because the proposals do not demonstrate sufficient level of safe, suitable access for pedestrians to the site. Yeah. And then the potential support for most sustainable performance of travel is limited. So, yeah, and they also mentioned insufficient details have been submitted to demonstrate that the access arrangements adhere to the guidelines in ordinance. So it's very similar to the situation that we had. Yeah.
What would they be looking for?
A path, pavement, yes.
Paving.
Yeah. So, and actually further along Common Lane, I'm not quite sure, I think possibly
particular time. There was an application further up Common Lane on a site called Swansea.
Just up to the left, seats, yeah.
So there was an application up there for a much larger development, which in theory looks to be absolutely fine. Was small properties with their block of apartments at the front, but that was refused because it was the absence of any form of pavements and its position so close to the highway. So
Yeah.
it's
I mean, they could get a path in if they just take a year off the front of each of their houses, I suppose.
So presumably then the suggestion I'm to go with is precisely what we did for the last one, which is we go back and ask them to resolve the highway issue.
Yeah. Absolutely, not about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is an outline planning application, so it's in a sense the testing of the water, really. So how can, how did
No objection to using these.
So, you know, it's subject to the applicant complying with points raised by Hertfordshire Highways.
Everyone happy with that? Yeah. Thank you. It's a great area to put houses.
It is. It's just, and you know, there's the precedent has been set, development directly opposite the, it just,
It is there.
it's strange.
So for the car bombs,
Yes.
there is.
What line, yes, yes.
Yeah, one
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to 5/20/25/0945, which is 44 The Uplands.
Okay, okay, the existing property presents with a wide but relatively shallow footprint started on a good sized plot with properties either side that cover larger footprints. Though they do not project in the same way as this proposal. This proposed to extend across the full width of the existing property, both front and rear. Rear projects 5.1 metres at ground level with a further small first floor addition, which also projects 5.1 metres and is 5.3 metres in width. Front extension, which is entirely two-storey, projects 5.1 metres forward with a minor centrally located recess, which reduces the projection by 1.3 metres at this point. These additions substantially increase the footprint and bulk of the property. Existing ridgeline is 7.5 metres with proposed ridgeline increasing to be 8 metres. This design appears to follow a similar principle to that of other houses in the close, and so other houses in close proximity that have been extended in the road. Their precedent has already been set. There are 7 trees to be removed, although there are no details of any replacement. The example parking provisional frontage site is not a conservation area. They consider the committee have no objection to the proposed extension subject to no other commitments to Lady property. However, it does express concern over the loss of 7 trees with no details of any proposed replacements. Was the easy continue plan once we 52.
Yes.
Trees.
Yeah.
I always find it extremely annoying that this in the Harpenden plan. Trees, you accept the trees obviously may have to be moved for planning reasons, but that they should be
Replacing the 2 for 1.
Yep.
Now, okay, yeah, it's not going to be,
no one constitutes you can plant 14 trees there.
I mean, that just, he's obviously not having it planted.
But the fact that they've just ignored this part of the neighbourhood plan, I always find somewhat irksome. Because
This house is a very green town. It's not being a green town.
that's a very good policy, though I accept and say there's some flexibility here.
14 trees. At least 1, and all they don't necessarily have to be planted actually on that property.
I know as well, however, I know you're going to remind me, that the LPA seems to just ignore this point in the past where
We, anything strong, to refuse proposals I've seen in the past where there were
also match tree changes and the LPA then
still ignored. So I think that's probably why you've got the express concern. Things haven't changed.
It's quite difficult because
yeah,
they haven't said that what they're replacing them with, but it doesn't say that they aren't. You know, and sometimes what you generally find is that they look to address that at the discharge condition stage, but we're wanting to see that
show in the planning application of what their intentions are, not as a satisfying of a condition that's been placed on the permission.
I think that we can have a heavier than express. I think that's, they just could print.
I think it is important that as
To solve the, name of plan, we do definitely. Express concern for several trees, there's no details of any proposed placements, whether you want to do something, consider replacements or something of that nature. I don't know what we've been doing for the last 2 years.
We don't have many applications where they're looking to remove trees.
Right.
You know, in all honesty, if they're wanting to remove trees, it generally means that there's substantial development taking place. Generally, we look at extensions and things where they have trees.
It's also the thing as well is that it's never followed up. No one ever checks. We had loads, I did a big extension, we had lots of things about trees and the trees had to be protected, the trees that, and I remember I took photos and everything to make sure that the trees didn't die and the builder just said, we will never, somebody came around and they did a survey and they charged me and I was like, yeah, this is really, and they said, and the builder said, we will never see him again. And he said he'd be back in 6 months to check everything. But we never saw him again. And I have lived there now for 12 years and I have never had anyone investigate the trees that I was meant to protect or look after or replant or whatever. Because I did a basement bit, so that could have affected the tree roots, all sorts of things. Nothing. Nothing.
If I may, on the point, I think if we look to strengthen the wording much more, it's important to, and obviously, you know, we had the things on this, but it's important to take one look at the rest of the uplands, on which there is very little in the way of trees on people's front gardens and go, that's somewhat ridiculous. Now, I don't agree with that point of view, but I would suspect it's
I think you've got to put it off as well, I guess. It's just the matter really, because I read like, I mean,
We can keep mentioning it, can't we?
Yeah.
Say it's part of the neighbourhood plan and at the end, and that is the document that we should be applying our.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to make any changes to what Heather suggested? Are we comfortable with it?
No, I think
We'll vote then. 5/2025/0949, 0914, 0904, 0730 and 5/2024/2211. Another one. 5/2024/2282 do not meet the criteria. And then we move on to week ending the 6th of 6. 5/2025/0992 does not meet the criteria, so we are on to 5/2025/0854, which is 6 Holly Walk, Harpenden.
A proposal is looking to add a two-storey rear extension over the footprint of the existing conservatory structure. Add a door window to the rear if possible width of the roof and change the roof from hip to gable, which none of the properties illustrate have done. Proposals to the rear appear to mirror what have been done at number 7 Holly Walk. Therefore, this removes any impact of them proposals. This type of extension has been set. Dulux windows are also proposed in the front roof slope and then the existing ground floor rear extension. Extensions will add a further 2 bedrooms to total 5. There's parking in the frontage of 2 cars with scope of additional parking for the street to consider no objection.
I'm assuming, considering 7 have done the same thing, that they haven't engendered, but I don't suppose no, not fine. No,
It's as an elegant consistency.
Yeah.
Everyone happy with that?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Heather. 5/2025/0869 and 0981 and 0802 do not meet the criteria. Neither does 0695. On to 5/2025/0970, which is 6 The Uplands.
A property is a relatively new build which fills the plot with minimal space at the side boundaries, with similarly sized properties to either side which also fill the plot in a similar way. Proposed is looking to add a two-storey centrally located rear extension which will fit 6.5 metres with a hip roof with a ridge line of 10 metres. This will expand the ground floor and the first floor out of overflow studio and balcony, frosted glass like panels. Section 6 metres wide with full length glass panels into sections of the side and fully in the clear elevation. 45-degree visibility zones. The two neighbouring properties has been shown as not impacted. The site is not in the conservation area. I've said, consider express concern. The proposed extension presents an overly dominant and bulky addition to the property with the addition of side glazing panels which could lead to an unacceptable loss of meeting to neighbouring properties. Was the EST2 for the neighbouring plan and 72 for the district plan affairs.
Any thoughts?
Just ask, you say, completely dominant, it doesn't. 45 degree.
It's rather large, big. Back of the property. If you kind of look here, it's quite an addition, shall we say, and then sort of when you see it like that. It's, yeah. It feels out to keep.
So the bulk and upkeep is not directly related to the 45 degree.
Right.
It doesn't have a point. Yeah, it doesn't have to be taken from the street scene. It can be overly bulky and dominant. You have to think of the whole property, you know, the property as a whole, so what it looks like.
Never seen anything like that before. What's it for? What do you need?
Well, it's, yeah,
What's
there's
that nice?
some additional sort of 3D images shared, but yeah, it's, I mean, when you see it like that, it's,
I assume that those rather large windows at the back, and they don't overlook anything.
well, in theory, it probably would. Yeah, so, you know, going back to what the residents of the Pigman Cross Way were objecting over West Way, that is a direct.
But is it looking any more than a window either side would be?
Possibly not, but in theory, by being that far out. So when you normally,
Close view.
yes, it is. So normally when you have when you've got side windows, generally you're expected to see the side wall.
I mean, the one for the either side of that bit they're putting on the end.
Yeah.
So, like these two windows here.
Yes. So that's not.
We've got more of those, is it?
Possibly, yeah, to say overlook from the sides. So this, if you're looking there, it's the sort of kind of.
It's not going to look into the neighbour's house because it's at the wrong
No,
end.
but if you look into their
Their
gardens, yeah, it's kind of, I think this bit here is what concerns me, is this.
Side.
This lot here that sort of sticks out, because if it projects so far rearwards, it just,
It goes quite far into the garden.
Strikes me as being an objection.
there aren't any objections, no.
Strikes me as awfully similar to what I do. Got this. It's an bird's eye view, good ones that have this.
What number is it you're looking at?
So, one to the south.
There we go. Okay.
It's sort of like circular slats, which is different actually on my bird's eye view to this one. I have a different image like this. This kind of stuff. You see that?
The bits that you're.
This is that's like the
Yeah.
wrong area. That's number 6. This kind of.
That's ground floor.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is kind of, this is at first floor level. If,
Architecture, it doesn't strike me as flats and lots.
I think it's because if it's a 2-storey level is where I'm quite concerned about it.
At the end.
Well, yes,
use that.
So it's studio.
Studio.
Yeah.
You should get a fancy bedroom.
No,
So I remember an application
I'll try and show you
years
this.
ago, someone actually put a glass front on the front of their house. And there was some concern
About people floating around in open dressing gowns.
Was this 24 Hollybush Lane? A long time ago.
It was a long time. It must have been about 4 years ago.
No, 4 years ago. Okay.
And there was some concern about bathroom because if it's used, because actually they want to explain a serious point. If it's if it's been as a studio space, it's slightly less concerning.
So what we're asked to consider is to express concern that the proposed extension presents overly dominant bulk addition to the property with the addition of side glazing panels which could lead to unacceptable loss of amenity to neighbouring properties. Yeah. Does anyone have any current thoughts on what we're asked?
Yes, I think that the road architecturally is very varied.
Yeah,
I think it's part of the character of the road that it is modern.
very different.
And different, you know, down the road. I don't think that I think that the point about overlooking potentially great loss of amenities next door to the garden is substantial, but I know that the neighbours haven't objected, which I think is in keeping with the culture of the neighbourhood, which is they don't generally object to each other's developments. I'd be much more inclined personally, if I was rightly, our observation to raise no objection subject to no loss of amenities. That's where I come out with this. But I understand I may be at a different point in place to the rest of the council list.
It does say that the side glazing panels are frosted, doesn't it?
Yep.
So,
Yeah, it does, yeah.
but possibility to the neighbours, they are frosted.
They've minimised that to a certain extent, yeah.
They've anticipated that as an issue.
Vicky? What do you think?
It is frosted, so that then Heather's concerns then, because like you said, it's frosted. So no one's really going to be looking through it. And it seems out of keeping, but like you said, it's lots of different styles and sizes and everything up and down. It just seems a bit.
So are you in agreement with Sam in terms of don't allow it, but
Yes, I'm just, the thing is, it's one of those things where you think, but I'm not quite sure why we would stop it, if that makes sense.
yes, yeah, from a legal perspective.
In that, I appreciate Heather was saying about the plant, but I think you just pointed out the frosted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are huge houses along there. And they're all different sizes and everything, so I'm not.
And I mean, I really do, stylistically, from that perspective, the idea of sort of modernist glass paint is really in keeping with the road.
Yeah.
So whilst I completely understand it might be somewhat dramatic architecturally, I don't find it at all to be. Also, it's in someone's back garden.
Yeah.
This was a front garden. We'd have a very different conversation if it changes the street scene, but this is.
But also the front garden as well, you've got the thing that you can't step, the houses can't come further forward, can there? There's a line, there's a particular line. But that doesn't apply in the back gardens, does it?
No.
So in the back gardens, you don't have that
Unless they
thing.
overlook, unless you end up with overlooking all the 45-degree.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so to the front, it would be irrelevant because it wouldn't allow it because it'd be overstepping the line of the houses. So yeah, I think it's okay.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do. Councillor particularly like the design. But
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see a real reason to
Yeah.
object to it. I think the point was just draw attention to it. Meditate to the neighbouring properties.
Yeah.
I'm related to.
So we would say express concern or approve with some concern.
Express concern.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're fine with it, but we're just concerned
Yeah.
about the overlooking,
Express concern about neighbouring properties.
not about the bulk. Did you want to
I
use
personally,
words that Sam suggested, which was we, the committee have no objection subject to notice.
So I feel
think
like
that's-
that's the discussion we're having, which is, does this have a loss of ability to the neighbours? And if it does, we have objection, subject to no loss of amenity.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's already in there, that's already in there.
The first thing is, do we say we're fine with it rather than, but we express concern about a potential loss of amenity.
No objection. Except
Yeah. But we taking out the vault, is that? Vault part of it, everyone happy with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Got that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Thank you. We're going to go to 5/2025/0984, which is 10 The Chowns.
proposals are mostly looking to extend the side of number 8, the Chams, to two-storey level over the footprint of the existing slightly forward of the front building line garage, which is to be demolished as part of this proposal, and the replacement of existing conservatory with a wholly built element of the first floor extension housed above. Ground level, a double garage has been incorporated within the proposed main extension, along with additional open plan living accommodation. The first floor, the main extension will provide an additional bedroom, which will be 5 in total, with the addition of a dressing and en suites and the configuration of rooms. Which 5 degrees in the living zone, bedroom, which is partly being achieved to the front by the garage having flat roof with a lights. Number 8, the child sits further back on the top of number 10. The rear element extension does not project wheels as far as their rear building line. The flanking part of the front end, not conservation area, and those that should be learned to be grants. No objection subject to notice of the means to sustain the property. Institute the lengthy plan and substitute.
That's just being developed as well. What's happy with that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, moving on to week ending 13th of June, we're at 5/2025 and 37, which is 2 Edgarhurst.
The property is the first in the line of terrace properties with the gardens of houses all different present to the site. Process to add a ground floor rear extension across the full width of the property to reconfigure and enlarge the ground floor accommodation, and the first floor extension over the footprint of the existing parking garage. This will enlarge the existing bedroom. Neighbour number 4 appears to have extended to a similar depth as what is proposed to the rear, and other properties in the street have extended to 2-storey level to the front, numbers 1 and number 10. No change in bedroom number, despite the loss of garage parking space. The parking provision is still maintained for 2 possible spaces. No objection subject to to number 4, Paper Paris, proposed front extension, policy is to the neighbour plan, and policy 72 of the district plan effects.
Yeah, it's fine. What's happened with that one? 5/2025, 1042 and 1012 and 1022. 1048 do not meet the criteria. And now on to 5/2025, 1078, which is 17 Bowers Way.
A resubmission proposal is looking to address the reviews of the 2024 application by amending the design, size and location of proposed dormer windows along with swapping proposed dormers for Velux windows instead. Precedence has already been set by the other properties of the road and inside and front dormer windows. Changes proposed in the resubmission appears to address the design and character concerns expressed by the MPA, the detrimental impact of this located property in the conservation area. Noted, however, that a preliminary backlist assessment has not been provided with the application papers, which was one of the reasons why it was such confused. Whilst they consider no objections, subject to subject to the recent review from the previous application being fully addressed.
Happy with that?
Well,
Yep.
that suits reasonable.
Yeah, no, reasonable. Good.
So we didn't have a problem with the first one, to be honest.
No,
So that's right, last one, I think. 5/2025 0048.
Okay, so this actually is a re-consultation which has come to my attention. Following additional information that has been provided. So I thought this was our opportunity in a sense to look at this again, bearing in mind that we had interest last time.
Yeah.
From, one of the residents.
Remind me, was this the one where
No, this is,
the son was upset because he's applying for planning official, is Or it's friends.
So it's that one. So a lady, yeah, so a lady is a number one lane and a health friend has friendly that will make our attention to their concerns. Anyway, so the committee considered this application as per the planning documents made available at the time of initial submission in March. Better drawings and supporting reports have since been provided, which the LPO will determine this application against. Therefore, the committee can have an opportunity to resubmit a recommendation based on the new information. So historical background information is this proposed is repair for 3-bedroom semi-detached properties. The application site is taken to the end of the rear garden is number 1 to 5 Lane, which is quite long and borders on 40 Backwood Road. Access to the site is off Backwood Road, which slopes upwards from Common Lane. The new properties ridge line stepped down towards the properties on Common Lane. However, they do still present a dominant effect in number 1 and 2 Common Lane. Each property has a garage and 1 parking space, which is marginally deficient in the parking standards requirement based on a previously approved application for single dwelling on this particular site. The site is deemed to be positioned in a sustainable location with good access to local amenities and public transport. Single garage is also proposed for number 1 Common Lane. The rear gardens are 127 square metres for plot 1 and 110 square metres for plot 2. There are no details of the size of garden space retained for the Common Lane property, though it appears that this will be sufficient based on the block plan. Mental drawings have been provided, although there appears to be very little, if any, change to the drawings that we initially submitted, which this committee provided comment against. An ecology report has now been carried out. It shows that there is in fact a potential net loss of minus 82.17% and a loss of 0.14 units of biodiversity. Based on indicate that there is no potential to achieve a 10% net gain on site. Therefore, off-streets, although not site, therefore a contribution will be required and agreed with the local planning authority. For details of correspondence with the national supplier of BNG units to satisfy the requirement. Hertfordshire Highways have provided a comment on the application and recommend that it be refused due to the length of the drop curve exceeding HCC's allowable dimensions and no details of the achievable levels of intervisibility between drivers exiting the site and other highway users, which is vehicles, sidewalks and pedestrians, being demonstrated on the submitted plans. On the basis of the additional information provided, I do not believe that it's sufficient change to warrant the committee change their recommendation that was submitted in March. The proposal can cause a detrimental impact and unacceptable loss of ability to the occupiers of number 1 Common Lane and the scale and bulk of the duties they close proximity to this water. Concern is also expressed that the applicant may not have fulfilled the legal requirement for this issuing of a certificate of ownership, certificate B to all owners of the land in question. Policy issued to the land plan 69 and 70 of the district plan first.
Do you remember this one, Vicky?
Yes. They're applying for planning permission on land they don't own.
Yeah.
Which they legally can.
Yeah.
Yes, which they legally can, which we established,
But we don't
but
think number 1 wants to sell.
number 1 doesn't want to sell.
Yeah.
And there is an aspect of, I believe, potentially.
So for everyone that wasn't here last time, what are your thoughts?
I think what you're saying is fine.
I guess it was to change. Recommendation. Just that the actual would remain, don't they? Deciding my vision of land that you don't know. I do know, that's why you can't do that. Big question.
It's very different if you're about to put an offer in on a house, if you're in a negotiation,
Situation.
or if you might be buying some land off a farmer or something.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's totally different.
That's why you're allowed to.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. This is,
That doesn't seem to apply here.
No.
yeah,
But that's being used for another purpose.
yes, exactly, I agree 100%.
And she has, as far as I'm aware, number 1 has no intention of selling at the moment.
Could you just, for my understanding, please explain to me what 0.14 units biodiversity actually quantifies that?
I don't actually know, to be honest. I don't have the in-depth knowledge to know how the units are determined.
But what I do know is that it has to be a 10% increase in the loss of biodiversity on the site. It has to be provided, and it's not achieved the target. Because ultimately, at the moment, the site is garden. They're removing a large proportion of that garden to be property, and they're unable to achieve the replacement units, or they're looking to do with, it can be quite common in these sorts of situations, is they're looking to achieve these units elsewhere through this company that specialise in biodiversity units. We as town council can assist with that, for instance. Yeah, so, you know, obviously we would be more than happy to put additional trees or enhance the community grass to become wildflower meadows. I think that can easily achieve, is required, but they have to show that how it is being achieved within thousands of square units being lost.
Why are we not just outright refusing?
There's nothing we can outright refuse.
So that isn't, this isn't sufficient. The concerns you raise are not sufficient. The highways concern is not sufficient. Fine, but it seems to me.
Highways is new, isn't it?
Highways is new.
That's new information.
Is new information that wasn't available last time.
So can we use that to strengthen it?
Use the can.
I struggle to see much of this that's.
So the,
Even the circumstances of the application seem somewhat negative, so.
to be fair, the circumstances of the application is hearsay. Opposed to actually what we've had clearly documented to us. You know, they work off the basis of the facts that are provided to us.
You're the experts, I can go with yours.
So we're
I
going
mean,
to say,
I'm happy to
consider a refusal and then put the highway stuff into the detail,
Yes.
because all the other stuff remains, but highways is the
Additional
piece of information. And biodiversity, that's new as well.
It is, but they are stating the means of how they can address
Okay.
it.
Okay, is everyone happy with that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if I can just go through then, please, just
Appeal decision.
comments, so
Thank you. Very quickly, so the appeal decisions that we've got there, so 21 Cornwall Road, we didn't actually make a comment on that, town council fell below the threshold.
No, was it refused or
It was reviewed.
by St Albans, but we didn't refuse it?
Yes, we didn't actually look at it.
Oh, right, fine.
Yeah, it fell below the threshold of us actually.
Oh,
looking at
right,
it.
right.
And then the other one, which felt like it took a year and a day, and it really did take a year and a day, for longer, to be honest, was the determination of the appeal for the Hartford Fire Station. So they were looking to put 3 or 4 houses on that, it was refused by the district, and it's taken 2 years for them. Actually,
That was before our time.
I think.
Yeah, no, I don't remember that at all.
Might not be.
I think I remember.
Do you remember? I can remember it. Do you remember it from before?
Yeah, so anyway, so,
Wow.
yeah, so
I seem to remember this application.
this came towards the end of 2022, so based on the number of 522,2522,
Yeah.
would say to me around about September, October 2023,
Yeah.
when she submitted. So that went to appeal and it's been dismissed. And we had a small objection to it, recommended refusal, lost the tree, flooding, etc. That's quite interesting. Nothing to report on trees, no, but there was just one application which was on the decisions from the district council that I thought was quite useful. That I need to share with you, so page 37. Which was for the Southdown Methodist Church, to make some changes to their frontage, yes, and that became the commission. So that's likely that we'll be seeing changes there. Good. So it already is a dance studio, yeah, so they're looking to make some changes to the frontage. It's a new ramp to step access, new sort of new sliding doors and just kind of make the frontage.
As well, then you'll be useful for that building.
And that's all I wanted to, draw your attention to. Thank you very much. So, meeting closed again at 8:21. Thank you, everyone.
2 seconds, I'm just gonna.